I want to begin by thanking everybody for taking the time to come out here today. I'm Justin King. I work in the Asset Building Program at the New American Foundation. And I want to start by taking the opportunity to thank all the people who've helped to make this briefing possible today. Specifically the Doorways to Freedom Fund, the Congressional Savings and Ownership Caucus, and all of our co-sponsors, the Hatcher Group for their support, America Saves, AARP, the Center for Financial Services Innovation, the National Community Tax Coalition, and CFED have all been strong partners in this effort, not just today, but really stretching back over the course of years. Our work in the Asset Building Program is focused on broadening access to economic opportunity, and it's focused on doing that by broadening possibilities for savings and asset ownership for all Americans, but with a focus on low and moderate income Americans. How can we work to provide families with enhanced economic security? This briefing comes really at an important time. Many of you may have noticed tax forms of various shapes and sizes and colors showing up in your mailbox. And hopefully you're preparing to handle your taxes in a low-pressure way. But truth be told, there's always pressure associated with tax time. For many families, that clock starts ticking right after the New Year turns. Money is tight, bills are coming due, and looking forward to that tax refund is a way that many Americans find a way to fill that gap. Especially for families whose tax refund is bolstered by the Earned Income Tax Credit. That refund check may very well be the single biggest paycheck they see all year long. For better or for worse, that's the way it is right now. And we really believe that it's critical that we start to work to change the way that families see the tax filing process and change the way that they see that big check. The process can be more than a chore. Filing taxes and getting a big refund really represents economic opportunity. It's a chance to begin to build financial security and to begin to plan for the future for yourself and for your children. Thanks to the hard work of some of the people in this room, that opportunity is now a reality. And actually, why don't we just hold on for a second. Folks can feel free to fill in and take a seat. There's plenty of room. So tax filers now have the opportunity directly on the tax form, when they're filing their taxes, to purchase savings bonds. A simple, secure savings product that research has shown really fills a need for Americans regardless of their income levels. And what we see when we sort of look at this development is a real success story. It's a success story. It's a beautiful story of how different sectors of America can work together to make it possible for people to save and live a better life. We see an aggressive, thoughtful nonprofit organization, the D2D Fund, who sees a need in the marketplace and takes it upon themselves to pilot the idea of selling savings bonds at tax time. They found that there was recognition for this product, they found that there was a market for it, and they figured out that there was a way to deliver this product to people who needed it. The President of the United States asked the IRS to make the changes necessary for all Americans to have access to this opportunity. And finally, the private sector has really embraced these changes and is pioneering, figuring out the best way to make this a win-win situation for their companies and for their customers. And actually, I'd like to pause for just a moment and note that not only do we have Intuit, the makers of TurboTax, represented in the room today, but H&R Block is here as well, and they've been a long-time partner in some of these efforts. So you're going to hear from all of these different sectors today and really learn not just about sort of how this happened and what it is, but also the next step in the process, which is making sure that people know about this opportunity and are able to take advantage of it. Before we get to presentations, though, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our friends in the Congressional Savings and Ownership Caucus. We at New America have enjoyed a great working relationship with this group of members since the caucus was formed in 2005. The leadership of the caucus is now Representative Cooper from Tennessee, Representative Petri from Wisconsin, Mr. Pitts from Pennsylvania, and Representative Songus' office from Massachusetts. And we're very fortunate to be able to work with them and their terrific staff members And right now I'd like to invite Zach Marshall from Mr. Cooper's office up to share a few words.
Well, thank you, first of all of you for being here today. I know the weather is a bit of a mess today, so I appreciate everybody coming out and spending a few minutes with us. I'd also like to thank Debbie Stein and Joanna Smith from Doorways to Dreams, Justin as well here from New America, along with Rich Markowitz and Sarah Christopherson, fellow staffers for the Congressional Savings and Ownership Caucus. Every day across our country, cars break down, family members fall ill, unexpected costs arise. For many of us, this is a mere inconvenience, a check we don't want to write. But for far too many in our communities, our neighbors, this can be devastating and set families into a cycle of financial insecurity that can take weeks, months, even years to dig out of. The Savings and Ownership Caucus is a bipartisan member organization that was developed to raise awareness of this issue and inform fellow members of Congress and the constituents that they serve of the products available that can pave the way to economic mobility and financial stability. Products like the tax time savings bond. As Justin mentioned the president, but also 6 years ago, Congressman Cooper, along with 11 of his colleagues, sent a letter to Commissioner Mark Everson of the Internal Revenue Service. In the letter, he called for the IRS to make those changes necessary to make it easier for taxpayers, particularly low and moderate income families, to devote a portion of their taxes to a savings account. It is my pleasure to be here today to see the fruits of those efforts. Together, we can work to provide solutions to protect our neighbors from financial crisis or ruin. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your dedication to this effort. For staff, if you or your boss is interested in joining the Savings and Ownership Caucus, just let me know. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach. I'd like to take the opportunity now to introduce our speakers. Don Dill is a senior tax analyst in the Wage and Investment Division of the IRS. Don has worked for the IRS for almost 25 years, and his current position is with the Stakeholder Partnerships Education and Communication Unit, or SPEC unit, where he partners with key national organizations to inform and educate consumers concerning their tax responsibilities and opportunities. Don's going to tell us really about the mechanics of how this project works and how the IRS has implemented this change. Joanna Smith is the Director of Strategy for D2D, working on the expansion of successful innovation pilots. Before she joined D2D, she was at the Baltimore Cash Campaign, which is an asset building, tax preparation, and EITC coalition based in Baltimore. And Susan Mason is, oh, now I've done it.
I am John.
I know. My daughter, who's 2 months old, is named Susan, and now I've embarrassed myself and Susan at the same time. Susan Mason joined Intuit in November 2002 as the director of the Intuit Financial Freedom Foundation. She directs the Intuit Tax Freedom Project, the foundation initiative through which Intuit has donated more than 20 million free tax preparations since 1998. And Susan is going to share a little bit on Intuit's outlook on the savings bond purchase option. But we're going to begin with Don.
Thank you. Good morning. I think I have to do some technical stuff here. 1 second. This may be beyond my expertise.
Yeah, go up one. And then hit.
I think I have to get it from here. Maybe not. Great.
Sorry.
Thank you all. Sorry for that little technical thing. First, would like to thank everyone for giving us this opportunity to be here today. The Internal Revenue Service is awfully appreciative of the opportunity to speak with you and give you some information about the Savings Bonds Initiative that we are very pleased to partner with these good friends here today over the last couple of years getting this going. We thank them, D2D and New America Foundation. I also see some of my partners from ARP, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, and the National Community Tax Coalition. So first and foremost, thank you to all of them for their efforts, and then thank you for your time for joining us today. What I'd like to do just quickly is give you a little background on where we are in terms of the Internal Revenue Service on the Savings Bonds Initiative, kind of show you what we're doing about it today, and again, ask you as you hear our other speakers today, see what you can do to let your constituents know about the opportunity that's right there on their tax return. So as Justin mentioned, in September 2009, President Obama in one of his weekly addresses announced that the savings bond opportunity was going to be provided with a tax return. As all of you know in this room and on the Hill, September to January is a pretty quick time frame, but we were up to the challenge. We worked together, the Internal Revenue Service with the Department of Treasury. I see our friends from the Treasury here today, the Bureau of Public Debt, Federal Reserve Bank, and Financial Management System. And we're able in the 2009 tax return to get the savings bond on there, and I'll talk to you more about that on a Form 8888. For those of you, and I'm looking around the room, or probably most of you are probably too young to remember, this wasn't the first time that you could buy a savings bond on your tax return. Back in 1962, there was also an opportunity to do it. So, as they say, old things return and in better form. So, last year, for the filing season, because of the short time frame, we were able to get the bond purchase out there. We put them on a form that it was called last year the Form 8888, direct deposit to more than one account. Some of you may recall, especially in this caucus, it used to be what we called the split refund form. And so we were able to get it on there, but we had some limitations due to time. The taxpayer to buy a savings bond was required to have a bank account to put the remainder of their refund directly deposited into a bank account. We had some $50, obviously, minimums, a $5,000 maximum, which is more of the savings bond information. And most importantly, in this first year, we were only able to allow taxpayers to purchase the bonds for themselves. And of course, in the case of a joint return, for their spouse. And the bonds were mailed directly to the taxpayers. They were not electronic. So how did it go? Very, very impressive results for, as we mentioned, a late start. 22,000 plus taxpayers elected to part of their tax refund into savings bonds. Totaled a little bit over more than $11 million worth of savings. So for an initial pilot year, we were very encouraged and very excited about that. As you can see, due to the split in $50 bonds and $100 bonds, it wound up almost being 100,000 bonds into the market. I want to just provide you a little bit of information as you're thinking to yourselves, you know, which of your constituents might be interested. Here was a little bit of demographic information we received, and each of these would be what I would say the most in each of these categories. So the highest percentage of individuals buying age-wise were those in the 25 to 34 category, almost 31%. Below 25,000 were about 35% of the purchases. I do want to note to you, if you think this is just for low income, it's really for all taxpayers. There were about 10% of the purchasers had incomes over $100,000 last year. So bonds really are for all taxpayers. Single status there, I showed 45%. We were very encouraged to see that a lot of folks with smaller refunds were using this opportunity, just as we just mentioned in his opening, a great opportunity for savings. It was not all the ITC folks. In fact, the majority did not receive it. And the one thing that you'll hear in my presentation, I know Susan will talk about it, in our first year it was almost all self-prepared returns, and that would include software companies like TurboTax and others, but very small percentage from paid preparers. So based on this encouraging results of the first year, we, if you will, got together probably about January 2nd and started working on this year, knowing that we needed to expand the ability, the opportunity for taxpayers to use their refund to start saving. So for this filing season that has started, for those of you who are not aware of that, it has started in earnest on January 14th. We've come up with a number of changes that we are very encouraged about and we think long-term will have tremendous impact. First, we renamed the Form 8888. It's now called Allocation of Refund, including bond purchases. For those of you who are near and dear to split refund, it basically is still a split refund. The first 3 lines, people can put it into a bank account, a savings account, even to an IRA, so a lot of opportunity. And then lines 4 through 6 give them the opportunity to buy bonds. Just as a note to you, there is a copy of the form in the blue folder that you have. More importantly, here are 2 of the bigger changes. One is that we now are allowing taxpayers the opportunity to buy the bond, and if they do not have a bank account, they are able to allocate the rest of their refund to a paper check. This was something our partners really brought to us as something that was really hampering taxpayers' ability to purchase bonds. They needed the money in a different format, so we were happy to use that. And then is on the next page, more importantly, we think, is that we expanded the opportunities for people on how they could buy the bonds. As I mentioned to you in 2010, the only bonds you could buy was for yourself. But in 2011, the opportunity now exists for a taxpayer to buy a bond for not only themselves, but also bonds for single owners. We call that a gift bond. For, say, a taxpayer wants to buy for a child or a grandchild, they can buy for them. They can buy them as a joint owner. The taxpayer may be a smaller child, and even as a beneficiary. So we believe this opportunity is going to provide a bigger market, if you will, for those who want to buy it, for maybe for others, for education. You'll hear more about all the different opportunities they can do it. So we're very pleased to get this onto the new Form 8880 that you have in there. I want to take a moment or two and let you know what we at the IRS are doing with our friends at Treasury, trying to get the word out. Again, this is an opportunity for taxpayers to use their refund in the form of savings, which we certainly encourage. And so we are working closely in a couple of different ways I want to highlight to you to get the word out. First and foremost, we're trying to get the word out to tax preparers. As you saw in my statistics, only about 7% of bonds were sold through tax professionals, and we've met with them on several occasions with many of these partners here in the room, and they told us there were some barriers. So we tried to get the information out to them early this year at a number of our conventions and forums over the summer. And so we're providing them with more information about why it might be good for their clients and information they can share with them at their site. Because one thing we've learned, and why I think we're here today, is even our paid professionals said if a taxpayer comes to them and says they want a bond, they will buy a bond for them. So whatever we can do to encourage taxpayers to know about it will be good. Secondly, we have gone directly to the tax-paying public to get the information out to them. We are trying to, in all of our messages, maybe some of you saw yesterday, we sent out one of our tax tips that we send out on a periodic basis during the filing season. That one yesterday was specifically just on savings bonds, so we're trying to get that opportunity out there. We've created a couple of marketing products, and I've put a couple of copies of those in your binder today for you to look at. Again, just different ways to get the message out. We're also increasing our scope in the social networking arenas, YouTube, podcasts. We have really beefed up information on irs.gov. I hope if you get a chance, you'll go and look at all the information we have out there. Good information that we hope you'll use and use to get your constituents to know about their opportunity. And then last but not least, we're working with this great group of partners that we're so lucky to have. For those who are not aware, one of our cornerstone projects since about 1971 is called the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, or VITA, and the Tax Counseling for Elderly Program, which is run by our partners at ARP. Last year we had about 12,000 free sites all across the country, manned by over 85,000 volunteers. Did about 3 million free tax returns. So obviously a great avenue for us to get the information out, so we're working with our partners to do exactly that. And we have, as I mentioned, a wide array of educational materials to get that information out. So we thank you for this opportunity to tell you about the bonds, and I want to encourage you, whatever you can do to get the word out to your constituents, that savings bonds are a good opportunity and they are an option for them on their tax return. I want to let you know, just got some preliminary results, and we can tell you already that because of the work here and the work with our other partners, the word is getting out. Last year, during the first week of filing season, we sold out 168 taxpayers asked for savings bonds. This year, in the first week of this filing season, 1,760 people asked for savings bonds. And so now in the 2-week period, we're up to 4,500 taxpayers versus last year about 1,000. So the word is getting out. We appreciate what you can do to spread it even further. And I thank you for your time and be here later for questions. So I'll turn it over to you, Joanna. Thanks.
Those are really, really encouraging results, so thank you. Debbie, where did you say this? Thank you. That's wrong.
I think you're on the top on this.
Oh, that's okay. Everyone's lucky enough to hear me speak twice today. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. I do want to let you know I saw people trying to scribble feverishly some of the stuff that Don was telling, including publication numbers, but our PowerPoints are actually in your packet, so you can refer to them later, and you can also continue to take notes, but just so you know you'll have them as references, you don't have to feel as stressed about getting all the information down. My name is Joanna Smith. I'm with the Doorways to Dreams Fund. My colleague and our executive director, Timothy Flocka, is trapped in Boston in terrible weather today. So he's very sorry he couldn't join us. But we are very lucky we didn't get the weather. So I'm at least pleased we could be here. For those of you who don't know us, the Doorways to Dreams Fund is a national nonprofit. We're 10 years old. And we essentially work to try to make sure that all Americans have access to financial security options. And with that, we particularly focus on our country's most financially vulnerable citizens and community members and try to make sure they have access to good products and services. We have a bunch of really great folks we've worked with. And I think all of us here should know why savings matters. Certainly the last several years have taught us that it's very important to have some kind of financial security net in case the economy turns down or there's a natural disaster or something happens where if you don't have a little bit of money in your pocket stored away, it's exactly what Zach was saying. It's not just weeks to get out of it, it's actually years, and it really sets families back. But just something I really want to point out is that savings promotes mobility too. It isn't just about an initial crisis, it's actually a poverty alleviation tool. And that families that, even if they start off as low income, but have savings in their house and savings as a priority, you see more of those kids get out of poverty than other families that start off in the same income bracket. So again, it's more than just can you get through today or tomorrow, it's what are you going to do for your kids for the future and where are they going to go. Something else that is really telling about savings in this country, again, just to motivate us a little more, hopefully not depress us a little more, is that Peter Tufano, who's up at Harvard University and is also our board chair, recently did a survey around the U.S., not just of low-income Americans, of everyone, and said, how confident are you that you could come up with $2,000 if an unexpected need arose in the next month? And that amount was chosen because that's kind of the average financial crisis, right? That's fixing your car, that's needing a down payment for your rent. It's a reasonable amount we often have to come up with. You can see how we fared against, it's small here, again you have it in your packet, but France, Germany, UK, and the USA. But essentially half of all respondents, 46% of survey respondents, could not figure out a way to come up with this money. That's if you extrapolate that, that's half of America can't come up with $2,000 if they needed to get through a financial crisis. So that's kind of frightening. We all know through our work, and I'm certain you guys know through your work, how hard it is for folks to save. I know how hard it is for me to save. And there's a couple of reasons that we've seen that come up over and over again. One, it's not easy. We have other things that are in our life that are taking our attention and our money. For a lot of folks, they don't have a place to save. In fact, they don't have a good product or service available to save. And they don't necessarily have money when that product is available to them. So there's a timing issue as well. We're working on a Doorways to Dreams Fund with a lot of our partners in the room, what can actually make savings easy, and that's truly what's most exciting about the savings bond opportunity. We believe bonds are a good product. We've done 5 years of pilot work that demonstrate that clients, taxpayers like it, but most importantly, it does make it easy. There's certainly other good products in the market, but this one makes it all easy. You need things that are convenient and timely, that are relevant and simple. So, tax season for most folks, I don't know here how many folks get refunds, I won't make you raise your hand, but it's a huge, huge time that money comes into the marketplace. You can see that this is 2006 data, so it's even more, but $250 billion in tax refunds come out every single year. That's a lot of money. For households that are low income earning under $40,000, $115 billion comes into the marketplace. A lot of that is tax credits, but it's also just overpayment of taxes. Folks are essentially using the tax code to save. And the other great thing about tax season is that it happens every year. So there's this real opportunity. We all have to file every year. It's not a choice, thanks to Don. But so there's this real opportunity to establish a regular behavior and savings pattern, right? Because every year you file, every year you could also save if there was an opportunity available to you. And that's really, what's so exciting. Sorry, I was really tiny on it. What's so exciting about, this policy. That you could use the IRS and use tax time. I won't really go into this. Don talked about, refund splitting, but what I will say is, that was a super critical point in our kind of tax history that built the plumbing to be able to do any of the savings stuff we want to do. So we certainly thank all the Congress people that were sort of ahead of the curve and said, listen, if we can't build this infrastructure into the tax code, we actually can't do any of the stuff we want to do because people need to save and it needs to be simple and easy and we need to recognize that. So this form that's in your packets is the split refund, well, it's no longer called split refund form. It was called split refund form. Now it has another fun long name, but it's Form 8888. That's very simple to remember. And so I really would love you guys to look at it at some point because what's exciting about it is that there's so many things you can do on it. We're here to talk about savings bonds because that's the big policy, that's the new opportunity. But it isn't just savings bonds that you can split into. You can split into multiple savings accounts. You can put money in your college savings account for your child. You can do that and buy a savings bond. So again, it's a plumbing, it's an infrastructure, if you will, that really facilitates our ability to get more Americans to save so that that number around how many people have $2,000 to get through an emergency changes from being 46% don't to hopefully, 95% do. How familiar are folks in the room with savings bonds? Do people here own one? Oh, great, that's exciting. How many people received one when they were born, maybe? Me? Okay. So, there's a lot of great, the savings bond that's on the tax form is called the Series I bond. I think probably most of us are familiar with the Series EE bond. But Series I is great because it's very simple. You invest whatever amount in, starting at $50, and then it essentially accrues interest on that as time goes by. So it isn't one of those bonds that you buy at $25 and it matures to $50. It is the face value you bought it at, plus all the interest that accrues over time. A couple of the things, again, from our 5 years of pilot work with savings bonds, and then of course our 10 years of history working with low-income consumers and what their preferences are and what their demand is for certain savings products, is that this bond has a lot of features that are actually really great for that particular market segment. And I'll just highlight a couple, but small balances, a $50 minimum. I mean, there are very few even certificates of deposit that you can start with that low a balance. Really all you got is savings accounts for that low a balance. Risk averse. Bonds are very risk-free. You put your money in, the government for the last 80 plus years has always paid you what they owe you on it. We presume they will going forward. But this isn't a market-based product. So when you have a little bit of money to invest, you don't want to be super risky with it. And this is a good product for that reason. And also you don't need a bank account. Again, folks do come into the tax sites that don't have bank accounts or that want to save and don't have bank accounts. Would it be ideal if we could also set everyone up with a bank account? Yes. But the reality is we just want to start people where they're at. And we want to get them into savings and get them into something that they feel is successful, that they can build off of, and savings bonds provide that opportunity. I keep mentioning this pilot that we did, and I do have a handful of reports on it, so if you're interested, we have some really rich data from the last 5 years of doing this work. Please find me after, and I'm happy to give them to you. But we did a pilot all over the country. I think that is actually up to date and represents all the states we worked in. Working with free tax preparation sites run in partnership with the IRS, working with H&R Block to actually see, does this work? Everything Justin and Don said, is there demand for it? Can we actually make it work through the tax code? Is tax time the right time to do it? Before we went to you guys and the federal government and said, can you do this for us? we wanted to show that it actually worked. And there are some really, really encouraging results that have led now to the national policy. You know, most importantly, easy is really important. So that something is like literally a check box makes a huge difference and actually encourages people to save. You know, the pilot encouraged a lot of first-time savers, and for those of us who do savings work, and I've been doing this for about 12 years, those are the hardest people to get to move from no savings to something in savings. And so that this was able to do it at tax time through savings bonds is an enormous accomplishment. 64% of our pilot tax filers had not saved anything until they saved in the savings bond. What a huge accomplishment. And then this other point that Don brought up about why it's such a big deal that the IRS has changed who you can buy bonds for is that says, 59%, but in fact, if you look at all 5 years, over 70% of taxpayers that came in and bought bonds through our pilots actually bought them for someone else. So buying for your kids, for grandchildren, saving for the future, they don't even have to be related to you, saving for your nephew or niece or cousin or neighbor, that's what motivates people to save. And so now that the IRS actually allows for that, is a huge market, as Don mentioned, opened up to us, and really a way to promote the product. And you'll see that in our materials. We're really focusing on children and children as a motivator. So as you heard, this is now national policy. And I just want to really highlight that this creates options for taxpayers. We're excited about the bond option. We think that data in our pilots has proven that it's a really solid product. But this isn't an either or. This is a complement to other savings accounts people may have, or it actually provides people who don't have a savings option a savings option. We have a bunch of national campaign partners and supporters who've been working with us for a while on making this happen. A lot of them are here, and just to mention them. But as Don mentioned, it's really important to get the industry partners involved, and that's why I'm very thrilled that H&R Block and Intuit are here with us. We've been working closely with a lot of the software providers and with a lot of the commercial firms to say, hey, this is a good product for your clients. You should be offering it. It's actually on the tax form, so it's essentially tax code. But that, this has value. This is an added value for your consumer because, again, the policy is wonderful, but it's only as good as people who take advantage of it. And so it's really on all of us and on the industry to take this opportunity to share the information. So now let Susan actually talk about the industry perspective.
But I'm going to start by talking about my mother. My mother is 91 years old, and what she has done for at least 30 years since my nephew was born was on every Christmas and every birthday, that's what the grandchildren got her savings funds, which is really a great thing, but she would bug the bejesus out of us. Have you done, she bought it, but we had to do all the work. So, it's the good news, bad news, but my mom has been a primary supporter of this, which has to do with one of the reasons why I'm so excited. As Justin said, my name is Susan Mason. I'm the director of the Intuit Financial Freedom Foundation, and I am delighted to be on this panel because I can tell you I had very little to do with our success of the Savings Bond Initiative at Intuit. That's because, I think when we were having conversations about this presentation, the thought was, well, what's the bottom line for Intuit? Why is Intuit doing this? And I have to say it's a very easy explanation. It's because we are nerds for our clients, for our customers. Everything that Don and Joanne have just talked about in terms of the reasons for savings is what we truly believe. You all just articulated it beautifully, so I won't go over that. But we believe that. We believe we want to give these opportunities to the customers at all of our SKUs for TurboTax. We have it for the people with the lowest income, and we have it for the people with the highest, most complex tax situations. And last year, literally in November, which those of you who are in I know that our friend from H&R Block can tell you this, in November, for somebody to come to us and say, we want to add something to your tax product, it's tantamount to saying, can you help us walk to the moon? It ain't going to happen. But what happened when we were convened by the IRS and Doorways to Dreams is because we believe this stuff, we believe the financial empowerment of savings, and we believe the empowerment of the tax time. Our business people, not the philanthropy people, our business people went, okay, we'll do it. And so they gathered the resources to incorporate it into every one of our products last season. And I think it took time to get it up to speed, but by March it was in every single product that we have. And I think of the 22,000 bonds that were sold, we were responsible for 12,000 of those. Which, again, I'm only saying that to brag on behalf of my colleagues, because they are the ones who make this happen in the product. And the reason we had so much success is that it was on all the appropriate screens. We incorporated it into our internal and external public relations messages. It was on our blogs. It was everywhere. Again, because our center is customers, and we believe this is good for customers. And they've told us as well by the results that we got. In terms of what we're doing this year, I put in your packets just a quick handout. One of the, I included this on Intuit because most people, when you say Intuit, they have no idea who we are, but when you say TurboTax, QuickBooks, we're going to go, oh, QuickBooks. So that's just who we are. But the back screen are examples of some of the screenshots that we have from our product. It's on the very first pages. So when you open it up, it talks about what we've done to change the product, and it also says this is how you can save at tax time. Again, blogging, we had Doorways to Dreams do a guest post on our blogs, and we're continuing to get that message out. The last thing I want to say is, if you all are wondering how you really can get this to your constituents, I have one piece of advice for you, and that is take advantage of what the IRS has provided you in terms of the VITA sites, the tax clinics for the elderly, and then Free File. That's where I do most of my work, is in helping people take advantage of using TurboTax Freedom Edition through the IRS Free File and Free File programs in 21 states. And these are self-filers. They're places where people can do their taxes for free. Please use it, Don. I want to congratulate you all for the first time putting that list of the VITA sites online. A nerd for the customers. I am so happy to see that. If I can send a thank you note to somebody who did that, please let me know, because I will. It's a great way that you can find out where your constituents can get free tax services. Free File is on the irs.gov homepage. It's just a way that you can help a lot of people connect to free tax services and at the same time the savings.
So now to the real heart of it, which is, what can you do to get this information out? Let's see. I do get my screen up. There we go. So at this point, instead of just encouraging you to open up your folders, I'm actually going to ask you to open up your folder to pull out your Legislators Toolkit. This is a document that, working very closely with the Hatcher Group, and thank you very much, the Hatcher Group, we've pulled together 4 legislators in their offices to really have some targeted sample materials. You guys can just cut and paste and use. We'll have it electronically. It'll be up on our Bonds Make It Easy website today, and we'll certainly email that around so you guys have electronic access to it, and to send, of course, to your colleagues who couldn't make it here this morning with us. But this is targeted towards you guys, and hopefully makes it very easy to essentially cut and paste and drop into whatever communications already exist, or it would be great if you did a special communication about tax time and bonds, and we included the website of where you can find your free tax site and other really valuable information about the earned income tax credit. But again, please use this and let us know if you have any questions about it. In terms of the overall campaign, I showed you guys our list of partners around the country. That list, I don't even know, quadruples if you put in all of our local partners. We're really, really fortunate to have a great grassroots network of organizations and groups like AARP that have tons of groups on the ground working with us to get this information out. It's still relatively new. I was just presenting in Washington State last week to an asset building coalition. So again, folks who do this work day in and day out, and I would say half the room had heard about it. And those were the folks that do free tax prep. So this is great information to share. It's new. It comes through a valuable resource, which is the IRS. But again, it's really on all of us to make sure this information gets out to all Americans. Our main website for the campaign is bondsmakeiteasy.org. We had this great little 1-minute video to show you guys to inspire you to save, but we can't get the sound to work. But if you go to our website and click on that, first screen, you'll see it. And you can also commit to purchase a bond or to tell folks about bonds. You know, our theme is savings is hard, bonds make it easy, because again, we want to encourage folks that this isn't that hard a decision. You're getting an average refund of $1,800. I am confident you can put $50 into a savings bond and do it for your child or for yourself, or really make that first successful step to getting yourself towards financial security. Again, as I mentioned, and these are all of our 4 images, we have them available in other languages, but we're focusing on youth, and that's largely because of the results of the pilot 5 years, where we really saw folks being very, very, very motivated by saving for someone else or thinking about the future for their children. But again, we have partners like AARP that work with a marketplace that can buy for their grandchildren, but also are thinking about themselves. And so I think, as Don mentioned, this is a product for everyone, not just for low-income filers, not just for high-income filers, but really for all Americans. We've gotten some great national media coverage of the campaign, as well as, more importantly, I think, into community papers where people really read the stuff and, you know, act on it. We have 2 cities that are our launch cities, Boston and Philadelphia. We had to really focus on a couple communities, even though we have a national network of partners, just to see, you know, test the materials, test the outreach strategies. And I can tell you, it's just going really, really well in those places. We have great kickoff events. So if you work with representatives that, you know, represent those areas, please get in touch with us. We'd love to connect you in. We also have special efforts going on in Alabama, Maryland, and at Fort Hood, Texas. But again, we have a huge list of local partners nationally. So I hope, and I sort of know I can connect you to someone in your community, a nonprofit or a local government agency that's doing some work on this, if you're excited about getting involved locally. We have, you know, social media campaign, and then we have an online video contest where we are asking parents to submit 60-second videos or less of their children saying what they want to be when they grow up. And the winning child gets a $1,000 savings bond. So this morning I was trying to get my 2-year-old, as he was playing Thomas and Trains, to say, I want to be a train engineer, but so I can't win anyways, but I thought it'd be fun. As I mentioned, we have a ton of other resources on our website as well. We have access to all of these materials. We have posters, flyers, table tents, brochures, things in lots of languages, things that are customizable. The Legislators Toolkit, which again is really targeted towards legislators per the name, and we really encourage you to use this. We will have it electronically, so it'll be much easier to sort of cut and paste and drop in. Please send to your colleagues who couldn't make it. I think they would really want to get this information out to their constituents as well. And it really is great as part of a larger tax message, or for those of you who work with America Saves and promote savings during America Saves Week, this is a really good message as part of that too. So don't feel like you have to build an independent strategy around it. It can fit into your existing communications. You can order materials through our website, so please make sure to get online and order. You can also feel free to email me or email Debbie, and we can, you know, the website sort of not where you want to go to order materials, and we can make sure that you get what you need for your district offices. Oh, that was it. So at this point, I guess I'll turn it back over to Justin.
And those materials are available at no cost.
At no cost. I'm sorry, they are free. That is right. They're available to you.
That's right. So I want to thank everybody for those presentations, and I think at this point it might make sense to open it up to questions. And we'll start right here.
Okay. I bought bonds for my children when they were younger, and I still have them, because if I cashed in my bonds right now, I would have to pay so much tax on that versus putting it into a 529 had I had that vehicle ready. Why would you kind of steer somebody into a savings bond, you know, that's going to grow? That you will tell them that they're going to have to pay tax on that, the interest on it?
Yeah, so,
I mean,
go ahead, Justin.
versus a 529 that may not be.
Yeah, I actually think, so we think 529s are a very good product. And for folks who don't know, 529s are college savings accounts that are administered by the states. Now, the issue with 529s is that some states run their 529s and they have pretty high barriers to entry. So the initial amount of, you can't save $50. And some states have done a great job and have very low sort of initial contribution amounts. But so there are barriers to entry in some states on 529 programs. And the other issue is not everyone goes to college. And so savings bonds provide a flexibility in terms of what you're going to use that money for, whereas 529s are really dedicated to post-secondary education. And if you don't use that money for post-secondary education costs, then you're going to pay significant tax penalties on that money. So there's a level of sort of ease of use that comes with savings bonds, and there's also a flexibility that 529s can't provide. With that said, the ideal, we think, and this goes back to what Joanna was saying about the plumbing, is that now that the IRS has done the work and created the split refund form and created these different opportunities, people have options, they have choices, and they can make the best choices for their families. And the ideal is really setting some aside in savings bonds for flexible uses, setting others aside in 529 accounts.
I think the other comment I would make is that 529s are great. I have one for my son, but they're not impulsive. So there's a couple of things. One, you have to be prepared when you come to the tax site with your account number. And secondly, you have to have it already set up. You can't instantly set them up through any commercial tax preparer I know of, and I know not through free tax preparation sites. You have to have that done in advance. And so for many folks, that's just not where they're at when they come to the tax site. And when I ran a full 20 tax sites in Baltimore City, we did a lot of work to promote 529s, but we still did work to promote savings bonds. And we sort of felt like if we could get someone into one successful savings moment, where they saved the $50, they did what they wanted to do, they felt very good about it, and then we could talk to them about other longer-term savings products that require more thoughtful signing up and choosing market accounts, that we could get them on that path. But for a lot of folks, the ease and the impulsiveness, really, that a savings bond provides is actually where they're at tax time. But I don't want anyone to think these are in competition. That's why I spent a bit of time talking about Form 8888, and that it really just provides this infrastructure that allows folks to save in ways that make them comfortable, that fit their family's needs, and that fit their current finances when they have that option.
No, that's great.
I have a technical question for Don.
Sure.
I noticed in your slide it said $50 increments.
Correct.
So if my refund was $483, the maximum I could put in is $450. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then get the remainder refund, either direct deposit or paper check.
Okay.
Let's go to the back.
What's the rate of return on the savings bond? And how does that compare to some of the alternatives?
Well, I'd just like to note that this is a tougher question to answer now that the Dow is back to 12,000. much more fun question to answer like late 2008.
I know. So I'm only going to stand because you're in the back, so I don't want you to not hear me. And thank you for that important question. I think I forgot to put that slide in. Right now, the rate is set every 6 months in November and then in May is 0.74%. Please don't sigh, sadly. If you compare that to other comparable products, savings accounts, and one-year certificates, one-year CDs, it's actually higher than most, or on average with them. So again, it resets, it follows the market. A couple years ago, it was like 3% or something, and we were like literally, they were flying out the door at our tax sites. But right now, it's where the rest of the market is. It's not a really great interest rate market right now for savings accounts, but so it is in fact at 0.74%, but I feel like I have to caveat that with what else is going on in the market.
The additional caveat to that is I can't speak for the House Credit Union, but if you're a member of the U.S. Senate Credit Union, your rate of return on a savings account is 0.2%. So
Thank you.
I say that with a little bit of indigestion, actually. And hold on one second, because I think that you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Oh, no, there was more to the I-bond. How long do you have to hold it? I mean, one of the things you said is, 40-some% of people can't come up with the $2,000 in an emergency?
An I-bond has a full redemption of 5 years, but you can redeem it as early as 1 year, and you just lose. The nice thing about a savings bond also is that you never really erode the initial savings principal because there's no fees. What you may lose is a partial interest if you redeem it earlier. So if you redeem it before 5 years, it's 3 months of interest is lost, but never your principal. You're never eroding the original investment. And then after 1 year, you can do it. There are special cases where before 1 year, you can actually ask the Bureau of Public Debt to release your funds. They've allowed Katrina victims to do that. It's big natural disasters, but there actually is a process to make a case for getting it before 1 year. What we have found out in our survey work is that, because these again are mostly financially vulnerable consumers, we were working with those 5 years, and we were a little worried about as tying up their money for a year a bad move for them. that our redemption, we were able to, Bureau of Public Debt can track the redemption rates of our pilot taxpayers, the ones who bought savings bonds at our sites around the country, with the redemption rates of the rest of the country. And they tracked exactly the same. 11% of people were redeeming. So they're being successful in the product. They're saving it for what they want. They're not going after it for emergencies. And when we would do follow-up surveys with taxpayers who purchase bonds, they would actually say to us, I am so happy that it's tied up in something because then I don't even think about it. Because what I don't want to do is drain it when I didn't need to. I'd like to be creative otherwise and then come back to this because I had a longer-term goal for this. And I don't want to use it if I don't need to.
And what happens at the end of the 5 years?
You can redeem it whenever you want at that point.
I mean, after
Oh, after
that,
it's to 30 years.
it goes up to 30 days.
30 years it stops accruing interest.
Okay.
And
So
then
you're
you,
still-
similar to what you're saying, you do pay taxes on the interest accrued, but that's how all interest is taxed. It's the same IRS guidelines as everything else. But you know, if you use it for education or certain purposes, you actually don't often have to pay the tax. There's some tax rule about that. That's education related. Not often used. Yeah.
Other questions? Yep.
To add on to the conversation about the interest rate, I organization partners with Nancy here in America Saves for America Saves Week. And a little anecdote, I had a man call us up last America Saves Week saying, I have a bone to pick with you. Why are you encouraging savings when the interest rate is so low? And I told him, I said, it's America Saves Week, not America Increase Your Rate of Return Week. And what we're doing here is trying to do some behavior modification. It's a vehicle. Savings is something that is an overall good. And interest rates, as you pointed out with the market, they will come back up at some point in time. We want you to get in, start saving, do a behavior modification, become better prepared for managing your finances. And as you started in the beginning of this discussion here, the emergency savings, the issue comes up where you may need that savings right away. And it's best to have it and not put it on your credit card and end up paying 36%.
That violates the unspoken rule that I forgot to voice, which is, there should be a question mark at the end, but I appreciate where you're coming from, so I'm going to let it slide.
Okay.
Let's go right here.
Yeah, this is very exciting, but a question I have, or a caution regarding a response that you could encounter in terms of kind of caricaturing the initiative. When you buy bonds, you're lending money to the federal government. When you're doing that, you're essentially contributing to indebtedness or allowing indebtedness on the part of the lendee. And given the concern now about federal debt, in terms of sort of scaling up this initiative, I could imagine some critics challenging it by saying you're essentially, enabling the federal government to become more indebted. So that's a caution. One question I would have is, have you thought about broadening the options to include, say, municipal bonds, which could be sensible in terms of rate of return or just a preference for the individual and also might be less subject to that kind of the concern over federal debt, which seems to be greater than over municipal debt.
Joanna and Don, want to handle the second part first?
About expanding the bonds, I can tell you it's hard enough to do that. I think what the IRS can mostly control, to the extent they control the kind of stuff that they have to do on behalf of other requests, is the federal bonds, the U.S. savings bond system. It's the Bureau of Public Debt, which is housed under Treasury. And so they already had, what made this possible was they already had systems talking to each other in place, these like back office, really smart systems that have to really communicate. If you saw the web of how this sort of works from the back office, it's pretty impressive they were able to get it up and running in not even a year, in a couple of months. And so the kind of communication the IRS would need to have with localities to expand to local bonds would be, I think, a real technology challenge. I'm sure not impossible, frankly, in 2011, but a challenge. I don't know if there's more on that.
I'll just note that at the state level, some of this might be happening too. Some states have also looked at the split refund option as something that they've done on their tax forms. And I think that if there's some kind of success and kind of penetration here with this approach, it could be looked at the state level for some other options where refunds. And so that's potential.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. I know that Maryland and California now have split refunds on their state refund form. I'm not sure of other states. Do you know?
No, we worked with California on getting it done there, and I'm just assuming that it's the kind of thing that will start spreading and embedding along with this experience and some of the other things that industries do.
And to the first part of your question, the market right now for bonds suggests that if Americans don't buy U.S. Treasury debt, others will. You know, the Treasury, you know, is not having a hard time finding other countries to buy American debt. And so, you know, from our perspective, sort of in general, this is probably not going to have a big impact on the market for bonds overall. But I think it would be seen as a net positive if Americans were more connected to owning our own debt as opposed to sort of lending money to other, or being lent money by other countries. So, you know, it is certainly, it's a hot topic right now, and it's something that people are very connected to. But when you look at sort of big trends, you know, we've gotten out of touch. People have gotten away from the savings habit. And one of the things we've seen, when you track the personal savings rate before the financial crisis, got very, very close to zero for a national personal savings rate. It's only the second time in our history that that's happened. The other time was immediately before the Great Depression. And so one of the things we've seen is a rising personal savings rate. Families are sort of taking their financial status very seriously over the course of the last couple of years, and deleveraging, moving away from debt and towards savings. And in the long run, that's healthy behavior for those households and for the country.
Yeah.
And then,
Could I just say,
sure.
yeah, I think one thing you may want to do that was done in the earlier savings bond campaigns of earlier generations is incorporate kind of that patriotic appeal, since something that makes Americans even more comfortable is, of course, you know, foreign lending.
Yes. Absolutely. Question to that?
Yeah, I was essentially going to build on the domestic versus foreign lending. I know historically domestic savings bond participation is much higher than foreign. So yeah, I was going to ask about the patriotic aspect of selling these things.
I am standing in front of an American flag. I think I'm doing my part.
In the Cannon building.
I do very much want to be respectful of people's time. Is there one or two questions that we want to wrap up with very quickly? Yes, Meredith, to wrap us up.
So and if this isn't an easy one to answer, you cannot do it, but I find it very interesting that so few folks who are taking advantage of it, at least last year, were getting the earned income tax credit, because these are families with kids and with grandkids. The pilot stuff says that, and I think the marketing campaign is really smart that way. So I'm just wondering if there are other savings products that families who are specifically getting those that are EITC or picking up instead, or if you anticipate a higher percentage?
I think the issue last year was that you couldn't purchase bonds for others. So remember, that's a new feature this year. And knowing from our pilot work that, so I didn't mention this actually, in our pilot work, because we weren't using Form 8888, we were actually able to purchase bonds for others. So that was a unique thing that was part of our pilots until this year, which now every American receiving a free refund can do that. But that, I think, is actually the big issue, is that those folks who want to save for others, for their children and grandchildren, couldn't in fact do that on the tax form last year, but they can this year. And so our expectation is that percentage of folks at the EITC, or the percentage of low-income filers, you know, filing head of household or filing with dependents, will actually go up as a percentage of total bond buyers. And I think you actually see that a little bit in Don's data, because those are the filers who file first. You know, they're the first filers of tax season because they're anxious for the refund. They know they're getting one. They're not, you know, they're not putting it off. And they've seen such a huge jump in bond purchases. And those are the people we know are filing first. That's data. So I do believe it's going to change. These features that the IRS implemented are hugely important to making this a successful policy this year.
And so maybe just to add, as people from congressional offices are thinking about, you know, kind of how to incorporate this into other things that you're doing. You know, I know many of Results Volunteers, that's the organization I'm with, have talked to your offices about their income tax credit and child tax credit from a policy side, but you can incorporate that into, you know, EITC awareness events that your offices are doing. And in some ways, that's good news, because don't take that other data then, it sounds like, as a sign that this shouldn't be linked to folks doing EITC.
That's right. Very different products from last year to this year in a lot of ways.
Just one question about the materials that will be made available.
Yes.
What will they have on them? Will it be just like the American government on there, or will there be D2?
So you can see a sample there, and they're not, they are. Okay, so it doesn't actually say D2D. The campaign is branded as tax time savings bonds. It's absent of us, because this isn't, you know, about us. It's about a national set of organizations working. You see the savings bond on it.
So just my question is, the documents that will be provided They're not government documents,
They're not, but you can order IRS publications. So the IRS does have publications that Don referred to.
We're not really allowed to promote other entities' programs.
Sure, I understand that. And so the toolkit does have, and I appreciate that, so thank you for bringing that up, has content and language that you can alter, use, cut and paste that then doesn't, direct people to another nonprofit. But the other thing is I know a lot of congressional offices work directly with nonprofits in their community who can use our materials.
Right.
And so the communication is partly to your communities to say, pay programs that work with constituents that we know you care about financial issues, contact the Bonds Make It Easy campaign, here's the website or whatever it is, and you can order these materials and get them out. But certainly there's content you can add to communications that doesn't need to refer to us. But there is IRS
Right.
Treasury materials that are in here that Don can tell you about how to
Well, and as we mentioned, there are a couple examples in your folder, and you can order these at irs.gov. But they do obviously say IRS.
Thank you. That's a good
We'll not go to
Sarah,
Oh, I was just going to add one comment, that in addition to the change from last year allowing, the low income allowing from buying out the other to be unbanked.
That's right. That's
a
huge. That's a huge part. That's exactly right. That you can put the remainder of your refund, thank you, into a paper check. It's also a huge difference this year, and so folks don't need to come, whether or not they have an account, they don't need to come prepared with that account in order to purchase a savings bond. People who are unbanked, who don't have an account ready at tax time, can also save, which is a very unique thing to be able to do, to save at any time without an actual account.
So I think our speakers are going to be able to stick around for a little bit to answer individual questions that people have. But I want to thank everybody and just let you know, you have an opportunity to sort of connect with your constituents. You have an opportunity to promote this sort of new opportunity to them, to help them take steps towards improving their financial security. We hope you'll take advantage of it. We're a resource that's here for you as you do that outreach. bondsmakeiteasy.org, irs.gov, newamericafoundation.net. And these individuals are here as well. So I want to thank them. I want to thank all of our sponsors, the Congressional Savings and Ownership Caucus, and thanks for attending. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up.
Thank you.